launch event. Tools for Human Empowerment, a Yogic Perspective. I would like to begin by introducing the current president of the VFA. Benny J. Tillman, or Balabhadra Bhattacharya Dasa, is a direct disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder and Acharya for the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He joined the Hare Krishna movement in 1973 in Atlanta and has since traveled extensively in India and other parts of the world, practicing and teaching the ancient Vedic philosophy. He served as president of the Atlanta Hare Krishna Temple for more than 18 years. Mr. Tillman was elected as the first African American president of Vedic Friends Association, or VFA, a 501c3 Hindu Vedic organization dedicated to the preservation, the promotion, and the application of Vedic culture and philosophy. He is also temple president and board chair of ISKCON Philadelphia. Mr. Tillman is one of the most respected leaders in the Atlanta Hindu community, having served it for more than 47 years. He frequently lectures at major Hindu events, as well as conducts weekly Bhagavad Gita study groups online, focusing on Western non-Hindu participants. Balabhadraji, welcome.
Hare Krishna and Namaste, and a warm welcome to all of our guests who are joining us from all over the world. And I want to say how much we appreciate all of you taking the time out today. Actually, I know it's a sacrifice from your family duties and social duties to spend time with us. And we promise that we will respect your time. And we're just very thankful that you're all here. And hopefully we'll get a chance to interact a little bit at the end. We can have some questions from our speakers. But I really want to thank the local Vedic Friends Association organizing team who worked so hard to make this event possible. Very wonderful members of our group. And I also want to especially thank Sandy over in Canada, who's been helping a lot. I've been communicating back and forth with her to make this event happen. So it's been a labor of love, because that is the foundation of our VFA. VFA's purpose is to try and bring about a revolution in consciousness in the world through Vedic knowledge. And to that extent, we have some wonderful, renowned scholars, authors, speakers in our team. You're going to hear from our three main speakers or main authors this evening, which is a very wonderful thing for all of us. I'm very anxious for that. And I also want to thank Anjali, who is our host, who just introduced me. She's a wonderful member of our team. She's our assistant secretary for VFA, but she's also the secretary for the Sadhu Vaswani group here in Atlanta. And I've worked with her on several projects, and she's just a wonderful asset to our group. And the topic tonight is tools for human empowerment. And I just want to take a moment just to focus in on that. And this is a perfect metaphor when we talk about tools, because the goal of the VFA is to empower people who are interested in the Vedic culture, in Dharmic culture. They want to become more involved, more proficient at, articulating it, understanding it. So that is our goal. So when we talk about tools, I just want you to visualize, like if you had a toolbox and what would be in that toolbox. If you went to a job, you'd have your screwdrivers, your hammers, and all those things to do the job correctly. So in trying to practice this culture, you need the tools. You need to understand the meanings of some of the Sanskrit terms, what they really mean. For instance, the word namaste, which I'm so excited about, understanding the depth of what that really means, understanding what it means to respect the divinity within yourself, but the divinity in others. Very powerful concepts. So going forward, we're going to have seminars and webinars and Zoom conferences where we're going to feature our main scholars explaining the details of this culture and giving you the tools to improve your life. So it says, for human empowerment, to make our lives better, especially during these difficult times. So going forward, you're going to hear a lot of wonderful things. So I want to make sure you understand, please stay in touch with us, join our mailing list, go to our website, stay up to date. There'll be a lot of things coming forward for you. And to that, I just want to say thank you again for being here. And I'm looking forward to hearing from our main speakers tonight. And I'll turn it back over to Anjali. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Balabhadraji. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. Stephen Knapp, or Sri Nandanandana Dasa, has been studying the major Vedic texts of India and practicing yoga and Eastern teachings since 1971. He was initiated by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada in 1976. He has traveled throughout India extensively and has a collection of over 18,000 slides and images of the many holy places, temples, historical sites, and festivals he has been to. He has authored almost 50 well-received books on different aspects of Vedic culture and Eastern spirituality and history, along with numerous articles. He has also been involved in the management of various Krishna temples for over 40 years and was the founding president of the Vedic Friends Association in 2001, which he chaired for 15 years. Sri Nandanandanaji, may I ask you to please share with us a brief history of VFA, highlighting accomplishments during your tenure as the first president?
I guess I have to, don't I?
We would like you to.
Sure, no problem. Anyway, thank you for allowing me to be here. Thank you for establishing this video conference and for all the participants that are here. And to give you a little bit of the history of the VFA. The VFA started, well, back in, I think 1999, really, where we were thinking that some of us, like myself, David Frawley, other people were also advocating and trying to explain the nature of the Vedic culture as eloquently and as effectively as possible. And we were all kind of working alone. So one of the things we were thinking of is we could all kind of band together to give us each other some support. So we could support each other and then also group together so that if other people came forward and wanted to know about different aspects of Vedic culture, whether it be Vastu, Jyotish, Ayurveda, yoga, whether it's Jnana Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, whatever, there'd be like some professionals, not necessarily professionals, but those that are masters in that area that could explain this much more effectively. And that way we could have like a group that could support each other, advocate what each other is doing, and then allowing students to come forward and pick out which authority they would want to take lessons from, so to speak. So how it got started was at a thinkers meet in Hyderabad, India. And this thinkers meet had some of the most famous, eloquent, and well-known writers of the Vedic tradition that were known at the time. These were journalists, authors, people who had regular articles in newspapers and magazines, and the security was very high there at the time. I think Vamanadev, you probably remember that. That was when Manohar Joshi was there, and the security was really intense. Everybody had to go through intense security to get in, to get out, because it was held at a wing of a hospital. And I was also thinking, you know, I mean, all that would have to happen is for the word to get out that we were having this, because it was very exclusive. It was invitation only. And so, and a good third of it was Westerners that were there. And I was thinking all it would take is like one bomb to blow this place up, and half of the, you know, major writers and Vedic advocates would be gone, just disappeared. But anyway, we had a meeting there, a separate meeting at the time, and that's when we formed the idea. There was about, God, there must have been about 18 of us or so, and that was when we formed the idea of the Vedic Friends Association. Now, the whole point of the Vedic Friends Association was Vijay and I, we were in Detroit at the time, Vijay Ganapa, and we were thinking, okay, what should we call ourselves? And we were thinking, going through all these different names, you know, names that would imply what we wanted to do without it sounding too, should I say, radical or, you know, revolutionary or whatever. But we wanted to be friends. We wanted to have all the different aspects of Vedic culture come together under this one banner. and be friends, because, our point was that it's all part of the Vedic tradition. Whatever aspect that you was, whether you were Brahmanandis, Shaktas, or Vaishnavas, Shaivites, it didn't matter. It was all part of the Vedic tradition, and they were all just as legitimate as the other. So we wanted to be friends in that way. So then anyway, we came up with the name the Vedic Friends Association, so that it would give the impression of what we were really trying to do. So then in 2001, we incorporated as the Vedic Friends Association. We got a lawyer and incorporated it as a 501c3. And then that's when I became the president. And then we would enroll members. And we had, at one point, we had over 450 members, maybe 480 members worldwide. Of course, the whole object was to try to introduce this to as many Westerners as we could. But in our attempt to do that, I also established a website, and it had the different aspects of what the Vedic Friends Association was all about, who some of our main members were, some of the, and as people would join, they would get a monthly journal through the email. So then I would have a few editions of the journal on the website and things like that, so people could get a well-rounded idea of what the Vedic Friends Association was all about, what they would get as a member, what we would do. And of course, the first few years, we also had our own conferences. We had our own VFA conferences at certain places. And so people could become a part of that. And we also had a chat group for several years, but unfortunately, the chat group descended into more of an argument group. And we thought, well, this isn't really serving our purpose. So after some consideration with Jeffrey, we had talked about it at the time, and we thought, well, there's no real point in continuing that. So we discontinued it. And so then we also came out with one of the things I was most interested in was getting a book together with all the different members who are experts in their field of Vedic activity to contribute something. And then we came out with a book called Vedic Culture, The Difference It Can Make in Your Life. And that's still available. In fact, I just re-edited it, changed the publisher, so now it's more available than ever before through Amazon as both paperback and Kindle editions. And it has chapters on, through many of our different writers on Vastu, Jyotish, Vedic science, from Michael Cremo to Professor Subhash Kak to Jeffrey was in there. David Frawley wrote the foreword, and a number of other people were also a part of that book and would give different ways and different introductions into the avenues that Vedic culture has to offer for developing our highest potential in whatever way we wanted, which everybody's always trying to do anyway. So, and I still think this is a very good book at introducing all the different avenues of self-development that Vedic culture has to offer. So I'm glad this is now more available than ever before. And some of us would also participate in lecture tours going across India, in which case we would try to encourage everyone, especially the Indian Hindus at the time, to preserve, protect, promote, and eventually perpetuate the Vedic culture of India, and to make sure that India remains the dynamic homeland of the Vedic tradition. And so we did a number of tours as organized by some of the main associations and organizations in India at the time. I remember 2 years in a row, we went up into the Northeast. The first lecture tour I ever did was with Professor Subhash Kak when we went to the middle area of India, central India, on about a 2-week tour. And he gave lectures on the scientific aspect of Vedic culture. And I would give lectures based on my impressions, just from the heart, what it's done for me and how it can do the same for other people. So that if people didn't care for the scientific aspect, or if it went over everybody's head, then I would come down to something that was more personal related. And so together we really did I think, a very nice job in doing that. And most people all like that. But that was the first time I ever got used to getting in front of an Indian audience, a purely Indian audience in India, talking about their tradition. And the bolder I got, the more confidence I had, the more people liked it. And you could always tell how many people would come up afterwards and talk to you about what their impression was of what you gave to talk. And I remember by the time we got to Vijayawada, there was like some politicians that were there, like the mayor of the city and the chief minister and this and that. And I gave a rather bold talk about the importance of Vedic culture and the profound nature and depth of Vedic culture. And afterwards, somebody came up to me and he said, you know, when you were talking like that, I felt like you were the return of Vivekananda. And, you know, of course, I'm not trying to be Vivekananda or anything, but you can understand the depth of because obviously that's a very high compliment. So in that regard, I could tell that I was, you know, starting to reach people through that means of communication. So I was very happy about that. And we kept going for a number of years in that way. And I've practically been to different conferences or lecture tours or something like that every year. Of course, I'm not as active in India as David Frawley is, Bhamanadev Shastri, but still it's been exciting to continue to go there and participate in conferences, lecture tours, things like that, and see parts of India that practically I never would have been able to before, like in the Northeast region, which I really like because the people up there are very sincere, very humble, yet at the same time desperate in a way to continue to hold on to their tradition, which is completely being challenged by so many different other religions or political groups or whatever. And that was when I got the idea of writing more for an Indian audience. Before that, I'd always wanted to write for a Western audience. But after that, I became coordinated, you might say, to write for a more Indian audience after understanding the challenges that many parts of India are facing because of various, whether it be conversion tactics or government affiliations that don't really care for Hinduism at all, and how we need to continue to protect, preserve, promote, and perpetuate this tradition. So in that way, I've also continued to write several more books, whether it's be Crimes Against India, The Advancements of Ancient India's Vedic Culture, Proof of Vedic Culture's Global Existence, which, by the way, for this next month Amazon is having a special on the Kindle version of that book in India, where you can get that for only 149 rupees to download it to your Kindle edition. So if anybody's interested, they can do that for the next month of October. And so I became more oriented towards writing for the Indian audience to inspire them and be an example of the determination to continue to make and show the profound nature and practicality of what Vedic culture has to offer, as we've tried to do in all of the efforts of the Vedic Friends Association. So, I mean, all of the writers, all of the affiliates and the VFA have also continued to work in that way, in whatever way they can. And not only are we an organization to help each other do that, but continually we've all been individuals working in our own capacity, in our own efforts, in our own programs to continue to reach as many people as possible, to continue to show what Vedic culture has done for us, and ultimately what Vedic culture can do for you and for the world. So in an essence, I don't know if that's about how much time I've got, but in an essence, that's what the Vedic Friends Association started out to be and continues to be. The one reason why I stepped down from being the Vedic president of the Vedic Association is because I was getting a little older, and I was just kind of running out of energy in some ways. I was doing the taxes, keeping up the 501c3, doing the Vedic Friends Association journal, maintaining the website, maintaining the members. And I was starting to think that maybe somebody else should start to, take up some of these responsibilities and share the load, you might say, so that we could, so I could continue to be more effective in other areas as well. So that's when we twisted Balabhadra's arm to take up the cause, and so far he's coming in and doing a pretty good job. So I feel like I can sit back and get back to my own sadhana, my own personal spiritual growth, and continue to work in ways of my own writing and stuff like that to continue my efforts of the job of what I call the 4 Purs, which is preserving, protecting, perpetuating, and promoting the profound nature of what Vedic culture has to offer. So that, in a nutshell, I think, is how the Vedic Friends Association got started, where it's going, what its purpose is, and we're still open to collecting members and bringing more people on board to help out with this cause and to show other people, Westerners in particular, but also Indians when they're interested in what Vedic culture has done for us. And if it can do it for us, then it can do it practically for anybody. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. So thank you very much. Jai Shri Krishna.
Much, Srinandanandana ji. That was awesome. If any of the audience has any questions for any of our speakers, would you kindly post them in the chat window on Facebook? And we will be collating them and presenting them to the speakers after they've each had a chance to speak. So I just wanted to put that out there. We'll now be moving on to our next speaker. Jeffrey Armstrong, or Kavindra Rishi, is the founder of the Vedic Academy of Sciences and Arts, or VASA, a renowned international speaker. He is also an award-winning poet and best-selling author of numerous books, including Spiritual Teachings of the Avatar, Ancient Wisdom for a New World. He has been featured in the CBC documentary, Planet Yoga, the Leo award-winning documentary, Take Back Your Power, Wings of Yoga, and 2 documentaries on Ayurveda and psychology for Mind Valley. He has degrees in psychology, English literature, and history, and comparative religion, and has spent 5 years in an ashram as a brahmachari, or monk. Though born a Westerner, he's dedicated most of his adult life to learning about, practicing, and teaching Vedic wisdom. At the age of 50, he left the corporate world and took a vow to dedicate the rest of his life to only teaching Vedic knowledge. He has worked with prominent Indian organizations to help with the revival of Sanatana Dharma culture by teaching at Hindu youth camps, universities, and civic centers throughout India, America, and Europe. He is the vice chairman of the Vedic Friends Association and is active with the British Board of Dharmic Scholars. Kavindra Rishiji, would you kindly share your vision of how to empower Dharmic followers with the proper Vedic tools so that they can properly represent their faith and their practice?
I certainly will, and thank you, Anjali.
Thank you.
It is as if Saraswati is here with us, having your eloquent introductions and presence. And to Stephen, who has been a dear friend for such a long time, and David, for all of the persons who are gathered here. This is an unfolding of a flower that has been waiting for the right historical moment. And each of us has been playing a role in the setting of the context for this next step. But something quite miraculous took place over the last few years. What I like to say is just after India had been fully colonized and the colonizers took everything that wasn't nailed down, everything certainly of value and wealth that they could, and left a rather perplexed and injured culture. The gurus of India said, wait, you forgot something. You took the stuff, but that's just stuff. You forgot to take the crown jewels. And so they came to the West, and to all of us, they gave the wisdom. They gave the vidya. they gave from the Vedic library. And that was what the colonizers wanted least, was for this brilliant library of knowledge to come out into the world. And who would have guessed that hundreds of millions of people would, of their own inclination, just be ready. So if we're watching a virus called COVID-19, I call this one VetaVid 108. That virus has been spreading around the world for a while now, and we have hundreds of millions of people who've got the bug. And the bug is self-actualization. The bug is to look at each other with respect and honoring in a namaste culture, where we hold the frame that everyone is here on a journey of learning, that all the living entities on this planet are intrinsically divine, just wearing different skins, wearing different species, but all of them are worthy of our respect. So the Vedic Friends Association understood, as we were creating the name, that we wanted the right flavor, and we wanted to be in a posture we could stay in for a very long time, really forever. And so we chose friend. Now it just turns out, just so happens, that the single text that is considered the most brief but complete representation of the Vedic library of wisdom is the Bhagavad Gita. This Bhagavad Gita has as its premise that the ultimate supreme being comes to earth from time to time and appears, that's called avatar, to descend and heal. And at a moment in history, depending on who you talk to, between 5,000 and 7,000 years ago, this occurred as a historical occurrence in India, in Bharat. And one of the players in that drama that unfolded for 100 and some years was Arjuna and his brothers, his wife, a cast of characters in the famous book, the Mahabharata. That book is 100,000 Sanskrit verses. And the Bhagavad Gita is 700 or 701 verses within that, and is a conversation between Bhagavan, the avatar of the ultimate reality, and our representative, a human who was at the peak of human excellence, Arjuna. Arjuna and Bhagavan were best friends. This is an unusual relationship in most people's thinking for us and the ultimate power broker, the ultimate creator, the ultimate everything. You don't usually hear people saying, my best friend, I want to obey, or I'm a little afraid, or who knows. But the Vedic culture said, actually, your best friend, just waiting for you to revive that relationship. So this means that the Vedic Friends Association was formed to embody a principle that is the truth of the Vedic civilization that we represent. And that is, this culture cannot be spread by coercion. It cannot be spread by conversion. It can only be spread by willing and friendly conversation. There is no other way that the Vedic knowledge has gone out into the world. In its entire history, it has never gone out at gunpoint. You must learn the Veda. That has never taken place. And so the Vedic Friends Association and the Bhagavad Gita and the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, various texts that are easy for us to approach, have been trying to make their way into the civilizations that at first colonized India, took everything, our ancestors. And it's a little embarrassing, I think, for my ancestors who never thought that the eldest son of their family would become a Hindu. Perish the thought. Who knew? And yet, this is based on the wider premise, which is at the basis of Vedic friends. It is that we're all immortal beings. We cannot die. And we're here on a journey of learning. We're not here because we're evil. We're not here because we did something wrong. We're here because we were curious and wanted to experience this part of divinity, this particular realm. I know, by the way, they said as we were walking out the door, it's a little difficult sometimes. Oh, we said, it's worth it. So namaste means I see you as a fellow time traveler. I see you as a deathless, immortal being, as a spark of divinity that has come on this journey like I have. And so the namaste culture wants to always go back to that relationship, to the possibility of real friendship. I don't think I even need to point out to you that the world is much in need of that right now. And that our governments and democracy are struggling not to hate each other over small differences and to find out a way to cooperate together. It is a very timely historical moment for the best friend with the supreme, best friend with everyone culture to ask, would you like to hear some useful suggestions about how we could improve the situation? We would love to share that if you are willing to listen. So this brings me to something that happened to me personally that I'm just going to share a little bit as a part of this, because this friendly conversation with Arjun and Bhagavan turns out to be the essence of the whole friendly I'd like to call it the user-friendly Vedic culture. And this user-friendly Vedic culture is embodied in the Bhagavad Gita. So when I and my many friends went into the ashram, in this case, ISKCON for Srila Prabhupada, our dear Guru, I was asked as one of the few who did this, because of my English major and lit degrees and so forth, and being a poet, to become one of the proofreaders of our Guru's books that were coming into English from this perfected, most perfect language, Sanskrit, about which I knew nothing at that time, or very little, and most of us didn't. But as time wore on, most of us studied Sanskritam with in my case, a Benares Pandit named Ramanath Sharma, who was teaching at the University of Hawaii. And he had memorized the 4,000 grammatical rules in Sanskrit of the Ashtadhyayi, of the grammar of Panini. This is Pandita. These are the kind of brilliant minds that we encountered as we entered into this culture. So remarkable. And so each of us studied enough Sanskritam to see that we had to have a vocabulary of it to represent this knowledge, because the words don't exist in English. And this is the pivot I'm going to talk about for the next couple of moments. It's very important to understand that the ideas that are being carried in the Vedic civilization have never been spoken before in the English language because there are no words to say them. And as a result, as time wore on, all of us practicing came to understand we had to have a vocabulary. But this is not new. During the time of Shakespeare, Shakespeare himself invented 1,000 or so words. And in the Renaissance, several thousand Latin words were put into English just to make it a smarter language. So what if behind all of that, Latin, Greek, English, European languages, what if at least 80% of them actually started out Sanskrit? 7,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago. So we look at all cultures and say, oh, you have truth in your culture. Aren't you wonderful? But we also say, you seem to be missing a few words. If you'd like to know them, they really help in talking about things that are so profound. And so, as I'm sure you know, all of these great acharyas and teachers who were during this colonial era also translating books. Sometimes people would come from the colonialists, find that they were yogis. Sometimes they would be vanilla Christians, I like to call it, Protestants like Thoreau and Emerson, Did you know that they read the Bhagavad Gita in French and the Vishnu Purana and the Upanishads? Or that German is from Sanskrit, not Latin. And so they studied the Veda quite intensively, and their great philosophers were affected by that. Most of you have probably heard of Oppenheimer when the first nuclear bomb was detonated in New Mexico. He quoted Sanskrit. He was a German scientist. He quoted Sanskrit, Kalo hi smihim, I am time, quoting the Bhagavad Gita. So all of this now is coming alive and waking up. So long story short, starting 10 years ago, I began to realize that the language was obstructing the influx of Vedic knowledge. And I thought, right. So all of these great acharyas in their purports, in their explanations of the Gita, did a brilliant job. I don't need to do that. They've done it. But the verses of the Bhagavad Gita were filled with Christian terminology that were placed there during colonization. The Sanskrit words weren't explained carefully enough. So I began a project 10 years ago to take out the inappropriate colonizing words, to add about 100 Sanskrit words to the verses of the Gita, and to blend the English and the Sanskrit very carefully so that the Sanskrit meaning did not get lost, and write a glossary that explains the meaning of those Sanskrit words that are incorporated in the verses. This is a continuation of a process that's been going on from so many great gurus and teachers in India. And now that we've gotten involved, those of us now I'm in my 70s, so those of us who've been now doing this for 50 years are looking for a service that widens the distribution of it in not a forcible way, but an attractive way, in a friendly way. Because we will not ever try to promote it in a forceful way. So clarity is the next step, in my opinion. And I know that each of the scholars in the VFA, all of the persons participating, hold this vision. We want to be friends with everyone, first of all. Secondly, we know we have many friends in the Vedic civilization because if the Abrahamic religions, as they are people of a book, then we are the people of a library. And there is a renaissance taking place right now, and different aspects of that great wisdom that have been held in Sanskrit without being distorted for thousands of years are now being moved into other languages, into German, to French, to Spanish. And because of its pivotal position into English, and now there are two groups that need to know this. One, while we were becoming Hindus, the Hindus were leaving their culture and finding roots in other cultures. I would like it to think it's two teams of yogis going out into the world. One by birth in families that were not Hindu, waking up at 16 and going, I'm a Hindu. I don't know why, but it doesn't make sense, but I've got to do it. We all did that. And then we found out why. And then we found out what a great gift it was. And then at the same time, so many yogis, so many people from India went out to other civilizations, but they spent the next 30 years just digging in, building businesses, becoming successful, building a life, and of course having children. Those children right now are poised between erroneous explanations of their culture in English and those of us who use English differently and some Sanskrit explaining to them how to represent their culture. At this pivotal moment, the hundreds of millions of yogis doing Ashtanga yoga asanas are just ready to go deeper into the knowledge. And hundreds of millions of persons raised in the Vedic culture have gone around the world, but now the next generation needs also to be educated in other languages about their culture, notably English. So all of the scholars in VFA, all of us who are dedicating our lives to this, think of this as our seva, to speak reasonably in a friendly voice with nothing but respect to anyone who's willing to listen, and empower them with the tools, as Balabhadra Das introduced to us at the beginning, in these valuable tools. And can I add something to that? That if this, I made a meme for describing this. I say to people who are listening to a talk sometimes, I say, raise your hand if you have a cell phone. And of course, everyone's hand goes up. I call it not self-realization, but selfie realization. Yep. This cell phone is interesting. But then I say now, so yoga, you're ready for yoga because you've got a cell phone, you've been reprogramming it and programming it and using it to communicate. But yoga says that this is your cell phone, it's full of cells. And all your cells are wirelessly connected to things that you haven't yet seen. And all reality is wirelessly connected to the divine. Hmm. And so, in a very real sense, yoga is reprogramming the biocomputer with the Sanskrit tools of the Vedic wisdom so that we can connect via mantra, via vocabulary, via understanding. It's an upgrade to the human biocomputer. And it's a marvelous new door opener for us to hold a view of each other, which is friendly, respectful, honoring, and sees each other as beyond just our matter, our skin, our clothes, but sees each as a valuable being. In fact, all living entities as such. And with that, we are now faced with technology that could destroy everything in 10 minutes. May you live in interesting times, indeed. In this interesting time, it is only calm, steady, dharmic people who do not want to harm, but want to just live by truths that harmonize with nature and the ultimate divine and benefit everyone. The Vedic Friends Association is a small beginner's step to talking to everyone in the tone of voice that we're talking in this broadcast. It is a reaching out to everyone saying, if we could be friends and you just want to hear, I certainly want to hear what you know. Would you like to hear from this library? It's pretty amazing. This moment, to me, is very difficult because it's getting everyone's attention. And the next voice we speak in will destroy civilization or healing. We will go from democracy to what I've made a word for, dharmocracy. Dharmocracy means cooperating with nature, respecting all beings and every living entity, having peaceful conversations where we respect each other and talk about the mutual survival of the planet, of all cultures, where we exchange civilizational knowledge back and forth between cultures in such a way that we're all improved and that we find the truths in every civilization, for they all have them, and that we honor the thought leaders of every civilization as they should be. And together, our friendship becomes our means of continuing this conversation beyond the current perils of the dangerous use of technology or of becoming hateful before we have the right conversation. And with that, I simply say to you, the Bhagavad Gita comes alive, is the first example, at least coming from me, of this process of refining the English-Sanskrit relationship and furthering our global friendship together. Thank you and namaste.
Thank you so much, Kavindra Rishiji. I really appreciate your words. And just another reminder to our audience, please feel free to post any questions you may have for any of our speakers in the chat window on Facebook Live, and we will collate your questions and ask them after each of the speakers has had a chance to speak. Having said that, I'd like to bring up our third and final speaker for the evening. Dr. David Frawley, or Pandit Vamadeva Shastri, is a Vedic teacher and author of 40 published books on yoga, Ayurveda, and Vedic studies, translated into 20 languages worldwide. He also writes on educational and civilizational concerns relative to India and Vedic culture. He has received a Padma Bhushan Award from the President of India, a Doctor of Letters from S. Vyasa University, and a National Eminence Award from SIES, the South Indian Education Society. He is director of the American Institute of Vedic Studies in the United States, which offers training in Vedic knowledge systems. He frequently visits India and is associated with Vedic organizations worldwide. He is regarded as one of the pioneers in the global spread of yoga and Ayurveda over the last several decades. Padma Bhushan Vamadeva Shastriji, may we ask you to share your vision for the future and your work for the preservation of Dharma around the world?
Namaste. Hari Om. Thank you, Anjali, for the wonderful introduction. And I'm very happy to be with all of you today. We have this wonderful Vedic Friends Association and sharing it with all. And I have been with it since the beginning. At the same time, I have been only a small player in the major event that this has been. I first of all want to honor and thank Stephen Knapp, because he has been the main visionary and the main worker and the main writer behind this movement overall. And he's done tremendous service for the organization, along with many other groups and organizations overall. So we all have to thank him for this organization and the ability to be here. Now, also, I was with Stephen when we started this organization back in 1999 in India. And as he says, we were with some very important leaders in the Hindu world. Swami Dayananda was the main person who envisioned all of this. And he is one of the main Vedantic teachers overall. He passed away a few years ago. We met him a few months before he passed. And it was an extraordinary factor that he brought in for all the Hindu community and society overall, not just VFA, but many organizations and many inspirations for humanity as a whole. So we must honor Swami Dayananda as well. At the same time, we did take various trips throughout different parts of the world and throughout the northeast of India. We worked at various levels with little organizations locally and larger organizations spiritually in the country. And also started this organization in the United States for sharing this Vedic knowledge with everyone and making it accessible and important to all. Now, I've been involved in this work for many years, a number of years before this whole Vedic Friends Association started. I was traveling in India and teaching in various ways and various capacities. And I also continued with this long beyond. And it was just in March I came back from India. We just had enough time, as it were, to also get back to America before this virus hit everyone. So it's been a long journey. And I've also been working with many other organizations in terms of spreading the Vedic and the Vedantic thought through yoga organizations, East and West, through Ayurvedic organizations, East and West, through Jyotish organizations, East and West. So it's been a long journey at various levels. I've also interacted with a lot of the media in India and the West. And one of the things I've got to learn is that what the media teaches us and what comes out of the media about India is so inaccurate and wrong and needs another voice to correct it. And there, Stephen has also done extraordinary work. I'm also very happy to be with Kavindra Rishi, who speaks so eloquently that you usually don't want to have to speak after him. Poetic knowledge is with him overall, and also knowledge of Sanskrit. And his particular topic right now, Bhagavad Gita and the terms in the Bhagavad Gita, is extremely important, because what's happened today is that the terminology that we have is incorrect. And we must use the Sanskrit terms. It's also true relative to medicine or any other science. There are technical terms that we must learn in order to have a real understanding. Unfortunately, even technical terms that we had, yoga, Vedanta, Tantra, prana, guru, so many things, these have also been distorted and lost over the movement of time. And this is very important that we reconnect with and we rediscover these meanings and we give them back to the audience of people that we are working with. And Kavindra's work has been very essential in this regard. And it's also an issue that many other groups have taken up. We also see a revival of Vedic knowledge in India. As many of you know, this Ram Janmabhoomi case was finally resolved, and the Ram Mandir will be coming up in Ayodhya shortly. I was there at Diwali in Ayodhya last year, where our friends at the Ram Manohar Lohia University lit 3 lakh diyas, 300,000 ghee lamps to illuminate the Sarayu Ghat, where of course, the river flowed and all of that. Then over time, we visited and worked with other countries. We've spent a fair amount of time actually in Russia, which has a huge Vedic community, Krishna community also. And we are also looking forward to going back there. And we hope that all the tensions relative to their community is resolved as well. We've also gone to South America, Brazil. There's also been a big Vedic community, Ayurvedic community, all these things going on there. And we've been connected to organizations worldwide. But over the last few years, our main work has been in India, I think since 2014. We spent maybe 3-6 months every year there because of what has been going on in various areas, various organizations, institutions, and we've seen the tremendous development that has occurred in the country. Wonderful changes, whether at economic level, whether at educational level, infrastructure level, so much is going on. And at the same time, there is always struggle, activity. Remember, India is 1/6 of the population of the planet. Has a population greater than Africa, twice that of Europe, 3 or 4 times that of the United States. And it has a tradition going back thousands of years, which is the Vedic tradition overall. And there's a tremendous history relative to the Vedic tradition, which is coming out, the rediscovery of the ancient Vedic Saraswati civilization that came out of India more than 5,000 years ago. I've been working with leading archaeologists and even geneticists there. Recently, I had a meeting with Sanjeev Sanyal, who is actually he's in the Ministry of Finance, but we have work there. And then also we have friends, Neeraj Rai and Vasant Shinde. And they've done all the genetics, and all the genetics shows that the Indian population is indigenous back to more than 5,000 years. Not only are the population indigenous, so are the animals. And we find the genetic trace moving out of India rather than coming into India. And also across the Pontic steppes into Europe, we find these particular connections. Vedic culture was part of ancient European culture, and this is also coming out. Particularly as the ancient European peoples look to awaken and discover themselves in these ancient Celtic, Greco-Roman, Slavic, Germanic traditions that is coming out as well. We also see an awakening of native traditions worldwide, Native Americans, Native Africans, Native Pacific Islanders. We also have these traditions basically throughout the world, and they have very close connections to Vedic knowledge and Vedic traditions in general. And this is something we must bear in mind. Also, the universality of the Vedic tradition, and Stephen has also spoken on that and written on that very eloquently as well. And even we have, of course, the diaspora of the Hindus globally. UK, United States, now the English-speaking world, Trinidad, and even Malaysia. So the Vedic knowledge is spreading in that regard. And many Hindu organizations, one we've worked with very carefully is Swaminarayan. Organization has built the largest Hindu temples in the world, including those, and there's one coming up out of Newark, New Jersey. That will be the largest modern Hindu temple, larger than Akshardham in Delhi. And that is going to be finished shortly. We help them with their Akshardham in Delhi and their historical display and all the other factors that were involved with the educational aspect there. We also have a growing yoga, Ayurveda, Jyotish movement in the West. And at the same time, there's a deeper level of students as well as the more, you might say, popular, superficial level of students that is always there. So Vedic Renaissance is going on. There's a tremendous challenge to all humanity. And one thing I would like to say overall is that in order to deal with the information technology that is developing in the world, we need a higher consciousness, a higher awareness beyond the intellect, beyond the mind, beyond the ordinary mind. And that is not taught. That is not taught in any university in the West. That is actually hardly taught or recognized at any religious or other level anywhere in the world. But that is the basis of Vedic knowledge, going beyond the body, going beyond the mind, going beyond time, space, and karma to the universal mind, the cosmic intelligence, and to an awareness that can help us master all forms of technology without being overwhelmed or taken in by them. Right now, the technology is driving us, disturbing us, making us a little bit crazy in some ways. It's giving us many benefits. We also have a disease that's based upon technology, a pandemic that's spread through technology. So we need the Vedic wisdom to take ourselves forward in and beyond all these technological limitations and transformations, and particularly for the future generations, which, as we know, live on the cell phone, but actually we must learn to live in the infinite space of pure consciousness, in the eternal that dwells everywhere, and in our true self, in our inner heart, what the Upanishads call the Vihara Akasha. You can find the entire universe. You don't have to look to the outside. We really don't need the mass media and technology, but it's very helpful at a certain stage of civilization. We need to awaken within, and Vedic knowledge gives us that knowledge, that wisdom of our true self and the greater universe that is relevant to all. That is why it was always defined as the Sanatana Dharma, the perpetual, universal, transformational tradition. So let us all share, reinvent, restore, transform, develop that Vedic knowledge through the Vedic Friends Association, which is this universal connection and development with all human beings and with the greater universe as consciousness. Let us all restore and bring that out again today. And I look to Balabhadra Dasa as our guru and leader for this transformation and our guide to the next step. So I do see in him the inspiration to take us forward. And those of us who have worked in the past, we're happy to continue, but we're glad to see this new guidance coming with us. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Hari Om Tat Sat.
Hari Om Tat Sat.
Thank you so much for your wonderful talk. I am inspired by Vedic Renaissance, by self-realization, by dharmocracy. All of these words are just ringing in my ears. I'd now like to invite Balabhadraji to introduce Vijayji to say a few words.
I don't know if I can even speak. I am thunderstruck. Excuse my voice, but hearing from our leaders, our founders, from Stephen Nab, Sri Nandanandana Prabhu, from Jeffrey Armstrong, Kavindra Rishi Prabhu, and David Frawley, Sri Vamande Shastri Prabhu. I am more excited now than I've ever been. Absolutely more excited. I'm thinking like how to take all of this wisdom that we've heard this evening and package it in such a way that we can bring it to society in a very, as Kavindra was saying, a very attractive language. That's our goal, to make all of this sophisticated, highly elevated knowledge understandable. I know my guru Prabhupada, when he came to America, he was a little bit confused how to deal with the situation here, because he had come from Vrindavan, India, in a very sanctified place, and he came to the Boston Pier, and he was thinking in his prayer, in a song, in a poem, how can I give this message? So he asked Krishna, God, please make my words suitable for their understanding. And that to me is kind of like foundational in how I see Vedic Friends Association. We're taking this highly sophisticated wisdom, very ancient knowledge, time-tested knowledge, and we're working very hard. So the members have worked so hard for more than 15 years to get it to the point of where it is now. And I just feel absolutely honored to be part of this group and to do everything I can to help bring this wisdom to as many people as possible. In fact, we're trying to take it into the urban communities and so many places. So I'm going to be calling on all of our leaders. Please, we'll make time, we'll make a program so we can educate. That's our main goal, is to educate the masses in this Vedic knowledge. There's so many benefits. There's just no way we can discuss all those benefits this evening. There's so many benefits to just studying this philosophy. And as it says in the Bhagavad Gita in 18th chapter, Jnana Vijnana Astikam. So Jnana is the knowledge, and the Vijnana is the wisdom which comes from practically applying that knowledge. And that is our goal, to teach as many people as possible how to practically apply this Vedic knowledge. So thank you, Sri Nandanandana Prabhu. Thank you, Kavindra Rishi Prabhu. Thank you, Sri Vamande Shastri Prabhu. Thank you so much for taking the time to inspire and encourage ourselves and also the people who are fortunate to be here. So at this time, I'm going to ask one of our local leaders, Vijay Ganapa, one of the founders of VFA. He has a few updates to share with us. Vijay Prabhu.
Yeah, namaste everyone. As Prabhuji told, I'm Vijay. I'm one of the founding member of VFA. Presently serving in the capacity as treasurer and global coordinator. So as part of the global coordination, we liaise with various like-minded organizations who share our vision and mission. For example, Art of Living, ISKCON, Seva International, VHPA, Hindu Services Foundation, and HSS. HSS, that is Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh, has been the most helpful and enthusiastic of all the organizations in extending their help around the world for the many VFA projects and programs. We sincerely thank them for their prompt help. VFA does not VFA does not charge any fees for members. Hence, it depends upon individual donations for running the organization. VFA is a 501c3 nonprofit organization with tax-exempt status. If you would like to get involved with VFA, please visit our website at www.vedicfriendsassociation.org. Dhanyavad everyone. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Vijay Prabhu. So I believe we've come to the end of our program, and we appreciate everyone staying with us for the entirety of the program. So to close us out, I'm going to ask Anjali if you'd like to just close out with a simple, nice prayer to send us off with the blessings.
Thank you so much, Balabhadraji. I will use this opportunity to recite the Gayatri Mantra, which is one of the most universal Hindu prayers. If everybody will recite with me. Om Bhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. Namaste, everyone, and thank you so much for being a part of our event.